Hello.
Hey everyone.
Welcome.
My tears have dried.
Yeah, it's been about half an hour.
The feels will remain with me forever.
That was fucking incredible.
It was.
I am...
Blown away? I hope so.
Yeah, I'm pretty blown away.
I told you this was a tight story. And you were like, oh, this is a silly mystery novel.
I mean...
And then by the end it's like, this is not, I mean, it is a mystery novel, but it's also not at all. Like...
Here's the thing is, I had faith in you. This story blew you away. I didn't have faith that it would blow me away, but here we are.
I thought it would do good things. I thought that you would appreciate it when I pitched it to you.
Yeah.
All those months ago. Hot damn. Yeah. I thought that... I know this been life-changing or anything to you, but I definitely thought that you would appreciate it and the story that's telling you what it has to say and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of fun stuff. Yeah, we just finished episode 8, including the tea pies. We have
indeed.
not done the trick ending, but I guess the only other thing is that, would you mind if we talk... I don't know. I don't think we need to talk about the trick ending too much. I don't think that's necessary. Normally we go through the Twilights at this point,
But there are none.
There weren't any Twilights. That just wasn't a thing.
Yeah, there is nothing
There's no
here.
tips, no characters dying, I assume. Actually, what happens if you...
It's just Kinzo.
Yeah. Although if you click on... I'm curious if you click on Battler, can you like revive him into Toya or something? Because that would be fun if you could do that.
There's no change. Is he in the future, maybe?
He might be in the future. Because we definitely didn't read him if he does have a thinker. It's very interesting. He's just not in there at all. He's not even a character in the story. Yeah. I guess I should say congratulations. You called the Toya thing from episode 4, I think. Episode 4, you had the thought that maybe Battler was writing all these stories to get his memories in order, and that's literally what was happening. And it's kind of interesting that it's a reverse of what the culprit Sayo was doing, where she was like, let me express myself by taking on all these acting personalities. Whereas Battler's thing is that he is now not Battler anymore, but still has the memories of Battler.
Yeah.
It's kind of a reverse there, which I think is pretty neat. It makes a lot of sense. And I think to anyone not paying attention to the story, it might seem like a stretch, but I think that if you are, it makes perfect sense. It's the perfect reversal of that situation.
Yeah, like, I've been going on for a while in theories. I don't remember how many of them made them into the playthrough, but I'll chuck links in the description, of course. But I've been going on for a while, since about episode 5, about how, like, well, okay, maybe the trauma that pushed Battler over the edge to abandoning himself was that he drowned for this reason, and Beto had shackles on her leg and dragged herself to the bottom of the sea.
Literally a gold ingot.
And it's literally exactly what happened.
The golden cat box, the golden rose, all that stuff. It's the shackle that's holding her to the game board.
Yeah.
It's surrounded like Battler's trying to search for the gold with the blue. Like it's good stuff. Searching for the gold in blue, as it were. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It all wraps around very nicely. And as you pointed out, and this is something that I didn't make a connection to, but in EP3, when Beatrice tells Battler to look the other way and close his eyes, very much reminiscent of that final scene in the boat.
Yeah. I mean, there are 3 scenes that I'd say. There was the collection of scenes in, like, the pseudo Golden Land in episode 5. There was the ending of episode 3, and also the end of the episode 7 Tea Party, that were all, like, written the same way.
Yes.
And when I was going through and throwing this theory, when I was going through and writing this theory, I was like, okay, there's a lot of similarities here. And, you know, I'd already pieced together the things just around episode 5, but then when the episode 7 one happened, I was like, oh shit. And then the moment that it was like, close your eyes on that boat in the chapter in episode 8, I was like, shit. Yeah,
the feel started hitting me when Beatrice says, she says, do you know how to pilot a motorboat? He's like, no. And she's like, well, I'll teach you. And because I just had the realization in the scene, because I knew it was going to happen, obviously, but in the scene, it's like, she's like, do you know how to do it? Because I'm not going to be there for the second half of the journey, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why she asked him if she knows how to pilot it, if he knows how to pilot it, despite being able to do it herself. There's a lot of really wonderful foreshadowing that sets up that scene. And to me, so in the first read-through, I cried like a little baby. In this second read-through, not quite as much, because I had to focus on actually reading my lines.
Yeah, I gotta say, retrospectively, I am so impressed you managed to hold yourself together through those scenes.
I know, I was nearly dying, but I just was, because I prepared myself. I watched the you know how it scrolls down through the water?
Yeah.
Because in the PS3 version, it's one line at a time, and they go fairly quickly. So I was like practicing trying to read quickly enough to actually get through that scene without fucking it up.
And like, I mean, how many things like that, like those bits of foreshadowing about Beatrice's death there at the end, how many of those did you like pick through on your first way through?
No, pretty much none of it. I was not at all prepared. I will say, apart from the episode 3 scene, I was kind of picking up at a similar pace to what you were. I was like, oh, this is foreshadowing for that, and this is foreshadowing for this, and this mirrors this, and blah blah blah. But I don't think that I picked up on any of that on my first read through. Like I realized I had maybe thought about the idea of Toya being a thing during my first playthrough, but I only realized it was the truth when we got the car scene. And I was like, there are two headlights looking at me on the asphalt. I was like, oh shit, wait, and I had the realization of like, oh, it's Battler. He's the one that's been writing this. Oh god. I hadn't really thought about that at all.
That's one of the things that's been fascinating me this entire time through, that I've been really looking forward to for this recap, is what kind of things did I notice that made you realize things? What kind of things did I completely miss?
Well, the problem is, because I've read it once before, I was picking up on the things that you were picking up on, but then of course that meant that I got excited about them and would point them out. Sometimes not truthfully, like the one where I was like in episode 3, I was like, Shannon's body wasn't even in the thing. Like it totally was. I just missed the line where they said that Shannon's body was in the thing.
Yeah.
But like,
I will actually say, while we were waiting there,
Yeah.
Between the end of episode 8 and watching this now, I went through and I was reading through the Umineko wiki.
Yeah.
I just went to the truth page for each game.
Oh yeah.
The wiki page does actually say that Shannon's corpse is not there.
Oh, does
which
it?
is interesting.
Wait! Who is... What?
So someone who wrote that wiki page was wrong.
Maybe that's where I got that information from. That
Maybe
sucks.
that is.
Oh, actually, you know what? There is... You know, we'll move on to that later. We'll get to Anjay and gold and shit later. Let me think if there's anything else that like springs to mind that like you picked up on that I didn't. I mean, obviously the whole thing about Will and Leon being kind of representative of an idealized form of Battler and Sayo was something that we were uncovering at the same time. It wasn't that like you were like, oh, this is the thing. I was like, oh shit, I never saw that. But like we were discovering it. Like me on the second playthrough and you on the first one, because you knew what you were talking about. We were kind of going through that process of together of being like, what is Leon? Why do they exist? And then of course we get into the whole discussion of whether how much of the story is written or not, which is something that's still hotly contested. That's a good question, actually. Based on EPA, how much of that do you think was written?
Oh, absolutely all of it.
All of it?
All of it.
Including the magic ending?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
And the thing I will say is, I think that the way it is presented to us is, of course, different from how it is probably written in the world, because there are some things that just wouldn't fucking make sense.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are certain things like, for example, when Featherin just decides to kill Lambda and then come back to it later.
Yep.
Like, of course, you know, the finalized published version of the product wouldn't be like that if it was released.
Have it, maybe.
Yeah. But it also screams to me that, hey, this bit is actually written as well.
Yeah, I mean, even Featherin...
and the thing I love about that scene, and it hit me a few minutes after we read it, so I didn't comment on it, but Featherin's like... oh yes, I always like to go back to go to the end and then write it from there. Which, of course, you know, speaking about episode 5 and 6, I think it's pretty clear that Ikuko was the one that wrote those in that case.
Yes, this is something. Actually, this is a good point to bring up. The idea of two authors, which I think is pretty fun. This is another thing that I didn't pick up until my second read through, but that you picked up on incredibly quickly. Not only that there were forgeries going on with episodes 3 and 4, but then that maybe it's not just written by Battler, maybe it's written by someone else as well as Battler. That kind of idea of like Erica is being written by one person and Battler is being written by another, and like, because that's like in my mind that's what EP8 is, right? Like Erica and Byrne are fighting against Lambda and and Battler and Anjay and all the illusions and the humans who are written, they're written by Toya. Like, that idea of having multiple authors is also foreshadowed by the idea of there being so many accomplices.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a discussion that's had way back in episode 2 where they're like, but there would have to be so many accomplices for this to make any sense. And then you're like, what if we apply that to authors? Like, there would have to be so many authors for this to make any sense. There'd have to be the culprit. They'd have to be Battler, or not Battler, Toya, and then Featherin. Three entire authors. That's insane. Like, it's not at all. It's not actually.
But the point I was going to bring up, though, is that I thought the whole way through episode 8, until that point that it was Toya, I guess I can say at this point.
Yeah, Toya.
Toya by himself writing episode 8.
Yeah.
But then when Featherin made that comment and also the bit about Lambda Delta writing, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the beginning of episode 8 was also the end somehow. And then we got to Fukuin House, stepped in the Great Hall, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what we've done.
Yeah.
This is what we've done. This was never Angie's story the whole time.
Yep.
This was Battler being left behind and the personality of Battler getting to have its last hurrah.
In the Golden Land, absolutely. Like, that's the entire these 8 episodes has been Battler's, Toya's memories of Battler being put to rest, right? Because he can't, as they kind of explain in the story, like, he can't just think about the memories because that hurts him, but if he were to perhaps use magic in order to explore truths of the world that he can't explain otherwise, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, every character in the goddamn story, then that's a thing he can do. Right?
Yeah, because, like, in my head, and I think it's pretty valid, and I would almost say near confirmed truth, that that bit at the end of episode 8 in the Ura Tea Party or whatever was the beginning. That was why episode 8 was written in the first place.
Yep.
And
it's to give him his last send-off.
Yeah.
Battler's last send-off as this fucking badass. And to give his last, like, I'm gonna help my sister, and we're gonna get out of here, and all the witches and the illusions are gonna have their send-offs, respectively. And then the witch is going to take Battler. The two who have fought for so long are going to come together, and they're going to go to the Golden Land, which is something that we've been promised from the very beginning.
Yeah, and like the whole thing is episode 4, 6, and 8. I kind of felt like were all written for Angie to some extent.
Yeah,
and whilst that's still true, I think it's more that it was written for Angie because that's what Toya wanted for Battler.
Yeah. I have a question for you though, and this is something that I am like kind of tossing up in my head. There is a question then, because we see Anjay die so many times throughout this story. Whenever she learns the truth, she dies. She falls off skyscrapers. She just turns into chunks of meat for literally no reason. What do you think her life or death status is at the end of the story? Do you think she's alive or dead?
I'd say she's alive.
Yeah?
I think the thing is for me is that all of the times that Angie dies through the story, then a way out is written for her.
Yeah.
And I think given the context of the end of episode 8, it makes sense that all of those deaths were because they were ways that Toya had foreseen that Angie might have gone off. Because, it would have been... maybe he caught wind that she had made it to the top of the skyscraper and nearly jumped off, but didn't hear what had happened after that. Because
Anjay disappears, right? Because they take the new name.
Because Okanogi covered it up. And then there was also, the whole thing of her going and traveling all around the island and being chased by the Sumidera family, and then being killed atop Rikenjima by Kasumi's thugs or whatever. But then there was also the bit at the end of the episode 6 where it seemed like Amakusa could save her. And then finally in episode 8, where I think that the end of episode 8 is the beginning, I think it makes sense that it's like, here's what happened to me. I fled, I hid, I took this new name, and Battler's finally able to write the true series of events in his last hurrah.
The true events, quote unquote.
And here's the thing, is in the context of the story, and we can go into this a lot more.
Oh, of course.
But the whole thing about it being a story about storytelling, and also how we were talking about at the beginning of episode 8, how this is like the story that's made me accepting of the fact that there is no definite answer, because that's the point.
Yep.
I don't think that Ryukishi actually has decided on the truth himself.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the point, right? Mm-hmm. Is that it doesn't matter whether Angie is alive or dead, whether this is Toya's fantasy about how he could have saved his sister or how he could have met his sister in the future. It doesn't matter if this is what actually happened. It doesn't matter if Angie became Angie Burgo from the moment she jumped off the skyscraper, or if she was shot by Kasumi's men. That's not the point. I think that, to me, my headcanon, my accepted truth, is that Angie did survive, and all of the other theories of her death were like Toya imagining the worst possible scenario.
Yeah.
But I don't think that just because that's what I believe, that is what the intention of writing was.
Yeah. I would say that the kind of point of episode 8, the point at the very end, it's highlighted for Angie in the end of her journey, you know, when she has that big scene where she uses the golden truth and all that. Which she did, just in case she doesn't actually use any golden text, which I was a little bit disappointed in.
Yeah.
Apparently that's saved for the manga version, which I'm a bit annoyed about. But obviously with the whole golden eagle and everybody comes back to life and all that sort of stuff, Angie is using the golden truth. Any ideas on what the golden truth might be? After all that?
Not really.
No?
Nah.
You can't take a guess?
I mean,
I reckon you could get it with 1 or 2 guesses. It's shocking to me that this is the thing that's like you're unsure of.
I mean, I feel like the obvious thing is that it's like, you know, even especially with how it's mentioned in episode 7, that it's like a truth that someone could be made to believe. But, you know, when we have these very stringent rules and choking on the red truth, and then this wacky set of rules for the purple statements and the blue truth.
There don't seem to be any rules for the golden truth.
There don't seem to be any rules for the golden truth.
No.
And so, like, you know, I think it is a truth that someone can be made to believe, but I hesitate to try to draw any further conclusions than that.
If you don't mind,
go for it. I mean, we're at the end.
Yeah. Golden truth is a truth that you believe in yourself. That's as simple as it is. So when Burn says, everyone is dead, Battler is dead, you'll never see your family again, and then RJ says, no, they're right here with me. It doesn't matter what Burn says. It doesn't matter what she says is the absolute truth, because RJ believes that there is a better future for her, that she doesn't have to dwell on the past of the murder of her family, right? That's what the magic ending kind of signifies, is RJ's willingness to move forward, and to say to herself, yeah, like, my family still lives with me. And it's kind of symbolic of like, of taking the memories of people that you've loved and lost and them like pushing you forward, right?
Yeah.
Rather than focusing on the fact that they may be dead. Like, it may be a fact that they're dead, but within me, I can carry on the name of the Yoshimiya family and do something good, which is what she does. She takes everything that she's learned, everything she feels about her family, the tragedy and the loss, all the pain, and she turns it into something good by building the Fuquin house again. So that I believe is what the golden truth is. It's a personal truth. And of course, a personal truth made by someone who is part of a story wouldn't matter unless they are the author, right? Unless they're the one writing the truth, saying this is what happened, which is what we've seen over and over again in the games, obviously. From Beatrice to GM Battler to Lava Delta writing, like, this is what the truth is. But the golden truth is just a very, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Overt way, maybe, of saying this isn't just a story that I'm telling. This is what I believe. This is my philosophy. This is what's pushing me forward.
It's very interesting though. Then at the end of episode 5, when it's first introduced, it's like Kinzo's dead. It's like
it is a weird way to introduce it, I think.
Like, I feel like I very much agree with your interpretation there and what you say about the gold truth, but I do think that it is probably the wackiest in terms of how it's used, because like,
it is.
Its first introduction and the way that it's used makes it seem like it's this all-powerful thing, but then the further we get into the story, it's like, wait, why would this actually make any difference?
I mean, in a story that's being written by a person, the golden truth is all that matters, right?
Yeah.
Because they're expressing what they believe. That's what all these magic scenes have been. Like, if we go back to when Shannon and Cannon talk with each other, all the way back, we're getting way out of episode 8. But I'll just say, if we were to go all the way back into like episode 1 and 2 and 3 territory, and we look at the scenes between magical characters, Cannon and Shannon, they are used to express what the culprit feels, right, when they have their conversations with each other. And of course, as we now know, Toya was using magic the entire time through episodes 3 to 8. Not by explicitly using the golden truth, but by using storytelling and using these truths that he's writing to express something that he believes or wants to believe or wants to figure out what he believes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How he's sorting through his memories.
I think the other thing I wanted to bring up about episode 8, which we did bring up a fair bit earlier, was how goddamn quickly we hammered through that.
Yes.
Because I feel like all of the epic fights and battles and like as I kept saying at the time, I enjoyed them all moment to moment, but it just went on collectively for too long.
Yeah.
Because like I think the one, probably not the best example, but the one that jumps to mind quickest is, I think it's the first few chapters of book 5 of Harry Potter. Because I was reminded of it by that reference in the tea party.
Harry Potato?
Yeah,
Harry the
Potato.
Or it was?
Is basically, you could sum up the entire like first 10 chapters or some shit with Harry was in a bad mood. And you could literally just not read the rest of it, continue on with the story, and you would miss out on nothing.
Yeah.
I feel very much the same about those fight scenes, where if we'd paced them slowly, read them bit by bit, or if we hadn't been trying to perform them, I would have enjoyed them a lot.
Yeah.
But because we were like going through reading each line one after the other, and it was just like, this punch happened, this punch happened,
and then they lived.
This punch happened, and they lived.
It very much is like the same story beat of like, I'm gonna fight you. Oh no, I'm being beaten back. Triumphant return. They lived. No consequences until the very end. But even then, that's the point. It's a fictional tale. There are no consequences, right? And that's the fun thing.
Yeah,
about the whole thing is that episodes 1 to 8. If we take it as being written text, then none of it happened. And theoretically, it should not matter at all, right? I think that's kind of the point of EP8, is like deconstructing the idea of like, every episode has to be jam-packed with information, and like I'm probably giving it a little bit more credit than it deserves. Ryukishi was definitely just having fun with a lot of it, but like, the point is that like, we don't have to have this whole big plot. We don't, like... It doesn't have to be there because it's a fictional story that someone is writing for fun.
Yeah,
right?
like
at this point,
I feel like honestly, all of those fight scenes would have been better as just a visual.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's like, in my head, I'm picturing the like slow motion onrushing horde.
Yeah.
And then slowly beating it back, and it was epic. I enjoyed reading it moment to moment, but I would have much rather had like 10-minute long
10 minutes
clips
of like high budget anime fight. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Definitely. I don't like, I'm gonna defend EP8 because that's kind of my job here, but I do have a lot of problems, including I'm gonna be critical here because I have to do that sometimes. The scene where Byrne throws all the mysteries and then Battler dies and then Anja uses the golden truth. I'll be honest, I know that's like the big climax of her character arc, but even the first time I was reading through this, I was like, okay, she's gonna use the golden truth, and yay, she believes in the power of family and friendship. Great. Let's move on. Like, I get it. I know it's important, but I definitely was like, it doesn't need to go for so long.
It felt a lot like me to the ending, a lot to me like the ending of SAO Season 1.
A little bit. Like, which is, like, it makes, like, if I think about it, it makes sense. To be fair, though, but in the moment...
unlike SAO, this story earned that moment.
Yeah, I will say, I think it's also partly for me with Byrne. I think it might be Byrne that's my real problem with that scene, because she just kind of goes, what? How could this be? This is impossible. How are you to defeat me? I had all of the power. I've been losing now. Yeah. Like, she's a very stereotypical villain at the end. As she says, like, she was playing the part of the villain.
Almost fittingly to me, I feel a lot... I feel that episode 4 and episode 8 are very much the same to me, in that I absolutely love them to bits, but I love them to bits for all of the things that I didn't hate, and all of the things that I dislike aren't enough to bring it down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, EP4 is a really good example of kind of what I wanted EP8 to be, I guess, in a sense. Not the whole episode, but like the final fight. Like the final fight with Beatrice, especially on a reread, is heart-wrenching because you know that Beatrice doesn't want to fight. Like this whole thing of like fighting each other, it's just not a thing. Beatrice doesn't want to kill Battler or like make him submit. In fact, she wants him to win.
Yeah.
And that's what drives that conflict between those two characters, is that she secretly wants him to win but can't show it. And that's where it all culminates in the giant fucking spike that goes her entire body and skewers her. That's a wonderful scene. But the fight between Byrne and Anjay is not. I don't know. I just don't find it as interesting to read through again. I'm not like, oh, let me pick apart every single line. I'm just. Byrne is the bad guy. Anjay is gonna say no to the red truth, and then she wins. And maybe I'm being overly harsh on that scene, but I just don't find it as interesting as the EP4 finale. I think the EP4 finale is so much better written, right down to the background details of the blue flowers being in the background, where he's like, oh, they're the color of revenge, but it's actually like or of truth, and he's like, but they're actually forget-me-nots, like, which is so ironic if you know the relationship between Beatrice and Battler.
I mean, yeah, we could go on about all of the fighting nonsense in episode 8, but really...
We're not going to talk about that too much.
Yeah.
We'll probably cut a lot of what I just said.
It's there for fan service.
It is.
And that's completely okay.
Yeah.
I'm completely okay with that.
It was fun. But,
I enjoyed the hell out of this episode, and that will not take away from it for me, but I will definitely be holding the skip button when I get to it on a read-through.
That sounds fair. You better read through at some point. Because especially episodes 1 to 4, I think are well worth rereading.
I'm definitely going to go through with the PS3 patch and the CGs.
Yeah, see what they look like. There are some really good CGs, especially for EP8. There's one with Erica running up the tower with her scythe, like cutting it apart. It's a good one. And the one where Maria's got the cheeky look on her face, and she's standing back to back with Rosa, and she's about to face down against Erica, and she's just got, like. Maria's just got this really smug look on her face. It's just beautiful. It's very well lit. Anyway, definitely recommend that.
But yeah, oh my goodness, all of the puzzle and interactive sections. I can't say...
What do you want to say about those?
I can't say I was surprised about them. A bit like episode 7. Like, even just in the preamble text here back on the title screen.
Yeah, it's like you can participate once for the last time.
Yeah. You know, it's not surprising that they're there, but it was very strange. It was a very strange way to do things.
It was weird. It was fun, though.
We spoke about it a bit during the playthrough, I think, but it's kind of strange that you'd, like, lock content behind choices like those.
Yep.
Especially, like, real simple puzzles.
It is a bit weird, but, I don't know.
I think, honestly, though, it probably makes good sense for the pacing, because if you just had all of those emotional scenes stacked one after the other and didn't have, like, the break of the puzzles, it would have been just a very monotonous scene.
It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah. And then the magic and trick ending.
Yeah.
Like...
Well, I mean... One thing I do want to point out is that, like, obviously the game introduces interactive elements, introduces the cake, and the riddles, and then Byrne's game,
all for that final one
where we get magic and trick, which you just immediately chose an answer to, which I was a little bit disappointed about. I didn't think you would agonize over the choice, but I thought we might get a little bit more of your thought process there.
I'm going to be honest, I would have stopped to think about it if the thoughts that you were saying were coherent in any way.
Just you. Look, what I was trying to say is it's not about whether Beatrice is the culprit or not. The point is that the culprit doesn't have to lie with the purple. It's ambiguous, right? The whole it's that whole thing of like, does Anjay like, I'm trying to like express myself here. Like, does Anjay trust people? Is basically what the question is asking.
Yeah.
Does she trust Beatrice, the person who she should not trust because she's the person who killed her entire family?
And not even that. It's that the purple truth that is used is fucking irrelevant.
Yes, it absolutely
It makes absolutely no difference.
The point isn't for you to figure out the puzzle. Like, it's not a puzzle to be solved. The point is just to remind you that she is the culprit.
It is a bright purple herring.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like, it's a stupid trick. I think in the manga translation, I was talking to someone about it, and apparently, because it goes through both endings, I think, and on the magic ending, Anjay explains the trick, and there's like, it's a fucking stupid trick, but I'm gonna pick magic anyway, because clearly that's what y'all want me to pick. Like,
yeah, no, that's pretty much my thought process, is I looked at it and I was like, well, it's fucking both. That's been the whole point all along.
No, absolutely.
But what do they want us to pick?
Yeah. I mean, clearly, it's framed as them wanting you to pick magic. I think that Ryukishi does consider the trick ending to be an acceptable outcome for people who want that kind of ending. But basically, it shows an idea of what might happen to RJ if she is not forward thinking, if she doesn't want to seek out a happy future, if she doesn't want to trust people. Yeah. But yeah, that's the point of that question, which I asked you way back in episode 1 in the recap at some point.
Maybe. I think I'd have to go check it again.
I'm almost certain it was the last question I asked you before we ended the recap, unless you cut it. I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. The final line was, "What a wonderful murder mystery," and I said, "What a wonderful attempt on my life," and that's the only thing I remember from the ending of that recap off the top of my head.
That's alright. It's alright, it's there. I laid the foreshadowing, you sons of bitches.
But yeah, like, it's so wacky to get to the end after all of this, and I mean, it kind of happened at the end of episode 7, but, you know, is it magic, is it a trick, is it mystery, is it fantasy, it's both.
And that's fine.
It's been both all along.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that always really confused me. I didn't say it so much, and I feel like I should have, but way back at the start when you were like, oh, you got to figure out is it mystery, is it fantasy, I'm like, well, it's clearly mystery, but there's also fantasy in this mystery novel, so it's both. So why are you asking me this question? This is very silly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the puzzle.
Yeah,
right?
I just kind of like picked a side and went with mystery because it was entertaining, and that's you know, kind of the angle I was taking to pick apart. And, you know, the thought process of why it can be both hadn't really been unveiled to us.
I mean, that's what... Well, yeah, like, that's the entire question that the episodes are kind of asking you, is whether it's mystery or fantasy, and it's both, in a sense. Which is just lovely.
It's kind of weird, because, like, you know, it's pretty obvious right at the start, and even right at the start, I was like, well, it has to be both by the fact that we have fantasy characters appearing here. So why does the story keep telling us this way? I guess I'll just fight along with the story. Yeah. And then the story brings you right back around and tells you that it was this way all along. Yeah. And as I said, in episode 7, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the whole point is that, like, there's this conflict that's supposedly going on, but at the end of it all, it's not a conflict at all. Oh, yeah, the music box. That's fun. You know, the conflict between you and the author, between Battle and Beatrice, between Bern and Lambda, blah, 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 all these, so many fucking pairs. So many pairs that are in this story that are just beautifully put together. And it's always about their conflict. But even in the fight between Lambda and Bern, it's not described as a fight at one point. It's described as creating a universe. Yeah. A positive thing, you know, like this exchange that they have, like the Voyager witches are so beyond the idea of like death and pain. Like Lambda's arms are filled with cotton candy. So them fighting is almost a recreational thing. Yep. Right. And that's the whole point. It's a game, ladies and gents. Umineko is a game. Even if it looks to be a novel, even if it looks to be a fight between two things, it's not. It's all a big old conversation. It's communication. And it's fucking beautiful. I don't know. Anything else you want to say about it?
Yes, but I feel like I'd need years to get my head around it.
Yes, it will amuse. It'll amuse you for centuries, child of man.
I have wondered for so long in this playthrough how people have managed to keep talking about this shit so long after it's wrapped up. Yep. And
now you have an idea.
I get it. Yeah. Like, I don't think my opinion will change terribly much on it. I feel like viewing it as a story about storytelling will stick with me. Yep. But I am, as a result of that theory, so much more interested in hearing other perspectives on it. Because, you know, my story about storytelling here, I want to see how someone who isn't into storytelling would view it. I want to see how someone who thinks I'm a dumb piece of shit for thinking that thinks.
Yeah, I mean, we are but one fragment, I suppose. We are but one, well, technically two goats, I suppose, chewing up this tail, trying to find meaning in it, with love, of course. But everyone else is going to have a different way of approaching it. Everyone else is going to have a different perspective, and interacting with those people, sharing thoughts, sharing opinions, sharing love of mystery novels is what creates a universe. Yeah, I don't know that I have much more to say. I feel like the novels said a lot of what I would say for me. Especially now that I feel like I understand almost everything.
That's pretentious of you.
I know, that's very pretentious, but like, I don't think that, like, I've seen people discuss, like, when exactly did this event occur, or what exactly was this character thinking in this scene, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna take a stab at this, but I don't know, I don't like to look at things with as much detail as some people would. Like, I know that some people, for example, have talked about when exactly Sayo used the test bombs on the shrine, and they tried to pinpoint, like, an exact year and date and such, and I'm like, I don't care about that. The whole thing is written text as such, like, I'd rather take that exceedingly simple explanation and just say, well, I don't think that the exact time or date matters.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even as I was talking about a bit in the playthrough and a bit on the episode 7 podcast for Rekenjima.org, like, you know, I went through and I came up with all of these exacting solutions, and I still stick by them, and I still think they're valid, but, you know, even if they don't match the manga answers,
oh god,
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, yeah. Are you planning on reading the manga? How do you feel about that?
Probably. I mean, I'll probably read it just to see what's there, but...
Yeah, I know that there are some scenes that are quite different. Like the scenes, obviously, because instead of the real game, there's hide and seeks, there's a bunch of extended scenes there that are really well done. There's one between Beatrice and Natsuhi, where she explains the trick from EP1, when she kills Natsuhi in the Great Hall, the Beatrice's portrait room, wherever that is. Which I guess you'll have to read the manga to find out.
Yeah, as I said, I was flicking through the wiki, and I'm assuming some of the answers on the wiki are at least from the manga to some extent.
Probably.
And most of them matched up pretty well. Most of them are pretty similar to mine. And, you know, as cool as that is, I don't think it fucking matters.
Yeah.
Because it's not the point. It doesn't matter that my solutions are correct according to the manga. No. It matters that they work. And that's, you know, my sub-fragment of the fragment.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose one other thing... Yeah.
Bring it up, this is the end!
The only thing that I kind of want to leave on is the like, final message of the series that... the other thing about truth, for Anjay, is that it's better to believe in the truth that is best for you. So even if, as I brought up a little bit earlier, that Anjay may have died, or, you know, maybe there's some crack theory that it actually isn't Battler who died and his diary escaped, or some nonsense like that. The truth that Umineko encourages you to accept at the end is the one that is the best for you, the one that brings you the most happiness. And I think that the ending where Anjay and Battler survive and believe in a miracle, believe in magic, they both believe that they can see each other again. I think that is the happiest ending, and I think that that's what the magic ending is. So I think that believing that ending is probably the one that Ryukishi wants from you, though obviously you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll believe in that ending. I think the interesting thing, though, is like, you know, believing the truth that is best for you. It's kind of a wacky way to think in the first place.
It is. It's a little controversial, I would say.
Yeah, it's like, here, just ignore your circumstances and accept that what you want to believe is more important than what is true.
Yep.
And to an extent, I really don't like that in terms of a life philosophy.
No.
That's a load of shit.
There's a big problem with it, but this novel makes an excellent argument for it, and it is worth considering.
I think in the context of the novel, it is the perfect outcome for the novel. But it's not something that I would ever dare try drag into my day-to-day life. No,
I wouldn't try and apply it to everything.
Like, you know, especially the example that trips me up is, you know, Shannon or Sayo being klutzy as a servant and coming up with all of these magic explanations for why things went wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, if you were just like, oh, well, it's the witch's fault, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean...
You know, to an extent, there's another way you could view that, and you could say that she used magic to explain it and cope with it, and then deal with it in the end.
Yeah.
But if
she didn't deal with it. Well, that was kind of the problem, is that she puts... This is where it gets a little bit critical of this mindset, because obviously the culprit's greatest, like, downfall is that they spend all this time writing things out and expressing in that way, but not actually acting. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
They believe that fate will bring them the best possible outcome, and then in the end they realize that maybe that wasn't the best idea. They're like, will I be able to live? Because, like, they spent all this time, like, being a servant, but then being the head of the family, but not actually doing anything. And then when she's finally on the boat at the end, she's like, I don't think that I can live, like, in the real world.
You know, it's like...
She can't live outside of the fantasy of being a witch because she can't act for herself.
You know, it's like when someone comes up to you, starts speaking about a problem, and they're like, well, you know, isn't it this way? And you're like, what the fuck are you going on about? And it's like, well, yeah, you know, my employer's being all mean. He's saying that I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. And it's like,
do something.
Maybe you're not. Maybe you should try step up your game.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
and there's nothing wrong with trying to cope with your circumstances and being the best you can be. But it is a very troublesome way, I think, to try and force the view of this novel onto reality.
No, I mean, I don't think that Ryukoshi is entirely, you know, pushing that stance.
I don't think he is either.
He's very critical of it. But, you know, he pushes happiness as a method of looking forward in the world.
Yeah, but like I noticed a lot, especially on the the introduce yourself thread on rekenjima.org, that people come in all the time and they're like, you know, this changed my life forever. It's changed the way that I think. And it wasn't, you know, like every person came in and said that, but at the end of this novel, I don't think this has changed the way that I think at all. It's changed the way that I think about the novel a lot, but I'm not going to go out of this and suddenly change the way that I live my life because of the stellar moral lesson that Ryukoshi has taught me. It's been an interesting way to explore other perspectives and other ways of viewing things, but I feel like none of those are super earth-shattering to me. It's like, yes, of course you should consider the things from other people's perspectives. Of course you should look at why they're doing things. You should, you know, look at the circumstance with love.
Think about other people, generally. I mean, the lessons that this novel teaches are not particularly complex. At the end of the day. I don't think that Umineko changed my life, but I do think that it is well worth showing to people that it could change the lives of. That's kind of how I approach Umineko.
I suppose, I think that's fair.
I had a much more visceral reaction from Higurashi. I don't think it's an understatement to say that Higurashi did change my life. That's a whole nother thing. If eventually we get to Higurashi, maybe I'll talk about that, but that's beside the point. The other thing that I did want to bring up is the way that Ryukoshi touches on a real life phenomenon in a lot of, as you said, like maybe his message is a little controversial. He touches on like the way that media portrays like actual crimes and murder cases and like people being kidnapped and like, you know, you watch Taken and the father's like, I'm gonna come for you, I'm gonna fucking murder you, or whatever he says, whatever the famous line is.
I have a very particular set of skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
One of those, yeah. Like, there are so many media pieces that are about people who have had their friends, their family murdered, usually a daughter or a wife or a mother, because that's just the thing.
A daughter or a wife or a mother or a brother or a cousin or a father.
But it's usually a female character, because that's just generally how the gender thing goes. But like, usually in those films, it's a very heroic thing to seek out revenge. It's a very heroic thing to seek out, dare I say, the truth. And Umineko says maybe that is very damaging to a person. There are a couple of articles that I've read, maybe I'll link them in the description here, about like real life cases where a mother has lost I think it was their son or their daughter, and they searched for them for like 20 years, and it completely ruined their lives, and they never found the kid, but it ruined their life. And so it might be said that it would have been better for them to let that go. Or maybe it was a daughter looking for their parents. Either way, like, it's just a truth that if you get so hung up on revenge and like finding whoever killed your family member, it will ruin your life. And that's what almost happens to Anjay. And I think it's controversial to say that endlessly hunting the person who killed your parents and your brother is a bad idea. I think that that's a controversial statement, based on the way that most media portrays that. And Umineko is very critical of that idea. Anjay, whenever she tries to do that, she fucking gets mincemeated. And bad things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, you can disagree if you like.
I mean, I think the distinction there is partially that, you know, particularly with pieces of media like, you know, Taken that you bring up or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, if the premise of the story is, and if it's a good yarn that you're telling and it's an entertaining flick, then by all means tell that story.
I mean, sure, stories are fun, right? They're for fun. That's like part of the point of the story anyway.
But
like that's a narrative that is always pushed. Like revenge is heroic and meaningful and honorable and all these things. But like maybe you should let that go and not ruin your life.
Yeah, I mean, like, something had happened not long before we started the playthrough was, like, my grandmother passed away or whatever. And there are a few moments that things came up through the story that I was like, oh shit, yeah, you know, that, like, that reminds me of what I went through at the time and how I felt and certain experiences that I've had. Like, particularly with Kinzo in the Halloween party where Battler's like, come on, don't you remember him being the fun old grandpa who spoiled you? That was a bit tough because when my grandmother passed, I was away for a week. Yeah. She had a stroke and went to hospital the day that I left. And then as I was 100 meters down the road from the house driving back, a phone call came through that said she died. And like, you know, so I was away for that, so I didn't really have to worry about it. But like, my sisters weren't allowed to go see her in hospital because my grandmother said she didn't want to be remembered that way. She didn't want to be remembered as the frail old lady in hospital. Yeah. So like reading that scene, you know, like I've coped pretty well with this. So it wasn't like I was bringing tears to my eyes, but it was certainly like, it was a tough scene to read for that reason. And I think that there are a lot of lessons, as you said, that the story teaches, and there are controversial things that it says. But the most important thing, regardless of what you think of like the difference between storytelling and seeking revenge in real life, regardless of all of that, the most important thing to me out of this is just viewing things from other perspectives. So if you do feel like seeking revenge for something bad that has happened to you, consider the alternate perspective that it would be better not to.
Would you say the heart? Consider the heart, maybe?
No, I refuse. But
we'll make a will out of you yet.
Yeah, I think there are, regardless of how controversial some of the lessons this story may seem to teach are, I think that it also provides context for those teachings that make them non-encompassing. And that's always been one of the interesting things. I've always had a passing interest in philosophy. I don't claim to be some sort of expert, but I've always really hated in philosophy these theorists that come through and they try to scope all moral decisions down to one anchor.
Yep.
Like, the one that I really, really hate is the second formulation that says that something is morally wrong if everyone were to do it and it were to cause problems. Okay. I believe it is it Kant? It's Immanuel Kant's second formulation?
That sounds like a philosopher, yes.
Anyway, but the thing I fucking hate about that one is that it's just absurd. It's like, if everyone was to do this thing, it would be morally wrong. Why? It would never happen. That's not how things work.
It's not realistic, no.
So, and I think the story does a good job of being like, well, hey, revenge can be a bad thing, but also consider why.
Yep.
Or
well, absolutely.
Accepting a truth can be a good thing, but consider why.
I wouldn't be a good fan of Umineko if I didn't say, take everything the novel just taught you and look at it critically.
Yes.
You damn nerds. Go back, look at everything that's happened, look at all that discussions, look at rewatch the playthrough to get us more clicks. Obviously. And think for yourself. Don't just listen to what Ryukoshi says. Think for yourself, try and figure out what all this means to you. Think if this stuff sounds like bullshit, go nuts, honestly. Like,
but figure out why it's bullshit.
Don't attack people. Yeah, like, be a reasonable human being, but like, figure out how you feel about it. Don't take anything this novel says as the ultimate truth, as the single truth, because there isn't one. And I think that that's a good place to be. A good way to leave it.
And so now that I've landed at exactly the same point that we started the playthrough,
yes,
we can now conclude the playthrough. There will be recaps. There will be other videos to come. There may be Higurashi.
I will say, when Tsubasa and Hane get translated, I am doing those. We are especially doing Jessica and the Killer Electric Fan.
I'm completely on board with this.
Because that's an amazing story. We're doing those.
But, yeah, this is... The bulk of the playthrough is done.
Yeah.
We are done for.
I'm kind of sad, though.
Here we are, finished with this playthrough on the 10th of February, 2018.
I'm both happy and sad.
I don't know when this video will be going live, I can calculate it out, but it'll probably change.
In 3 years, I hope.
It won't be that long.
Oh.
But yeah.
It's been a fucking ride, dudes.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yay!
If the first episode of Higurashi comes out next week, good on us. But fuck, I doubt it.
I'm just dying for that whole shit. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this has been a wonderful attempt on my life.
I have nothing more to say. That is exactly what I was going to. Further proof that we are merely one of the same mind.
Yep. It's been great. See you all when something else cries.